a watering hole for sharply dressed teddy boys, rebelling against the casual, hippie youth culture around them.
He had a fantastic jukebox. It was kind of cool. He had a great collection of early 50s and 60s records. Johnny and the Hurricanes, I remember there was one track called Saturday Night at the Duck Pond, which was a rock and roll instrumental version of Swan Lake.
McLaren and Westwood's shop became the focus for a fashion-based counterculture that combined his ideas with her dressmaking skills. They used slogans and graphics to sell merchandise to the emerging punk army.
If you think of myself and Malcolm in a partnership there, and he was very, very keen on this situationist slogan about autonomy for kids. And nearly every fabric that's produced in England has got a kind of emotional charge.
She certainly brought a level of kind of craftsmanship and tradition and skill and talent and also flair to what she made, but at the same time, I think sometimes he brought that weirder sense of humour that you found in their earlier clothes together.
One was on a kind of adventure. And whatever you said and whatever you did in your shop, it was always about being an anti-shop. Anti-sex, anti-everything, anti-fashion, and anti-commercial.
It's only unpopular ideas that are capable of slowly gleaning a few disciples until the end. Till in the end it's possible for them to have an effect because they are original.
McLaren remained restless. In 1974, he went to New York to investigate its street fashion and became immersed in the city's underground music scene. He was particularly taken with the New York Dolls, whom he would later manage, absorbing every element of their punk appeal.
Like it was my baby. My baby.
Malcolm made a note of everything it took that he's seen made a reaction. He jotted this down on paper if he had to, maybe that night, but he jotted it down constantly, always. He had a lot of other things in mind. Little by little, he wanted to take over. He wanted to manage the group, which I thought totally was a joke.
He used everything that was transportable, you know, the haircut and the clothing style, and transplanted it to London.
McLaren was becoming the English heir to Andy Warhol, collecting and collaging icons of underground culture.
I think McLaren actually created some works of art that were as interesting and as fascinating as the things Warhol did, and he did it in a much more British context. You know, his whole sense, in a way, was like he was like this kind of grandiose drifter that just drifted from situation to situation, and with a kind of great intellectual curiosity.
In the same year, back in London, Malcolm brought together a group of unlikely lads who would make an anti-music, anti-fashion statement for him.
Formed this band around Malcolm's shop with all these people who were in the hippest place or the weirdest place in London. I saw it as my exit from the straight 9-to-5 world somehow. Don't know how, I didn't think it through, but it was just a vibe about the whole thing. And Steve and Paul used to come in with their gang of mates, ostensibly to nick stuff. And it was kind of my job to stop them. And I overheard them talking one day that they had a band that Steve was always pestering Malcolm to get involved with. When I popped up, well, I play bass, or I'm learning bass. And Malcolm said, well, why don't you guys get together? You know, and he started sort of instigating this kind of thing there and then.
In came this guy, desperate to buy a pair of these white suede pointed brothel creepers. And I said, do you want to audition to be in a band? He thought I was totally mad and said, no, I'm not interested. And I said, well, I want you to be. No. I said, what? Do you sing? Do you like music? You know, I was asking him all these inane questions. I felt utterly ridiculous, actually. However, I eventually managed to seduce him sufficiently to come and meet the rest of the crew.
was just another hopeless kid out of the council flats. I had no career and couldn't care less about the shenanigans of the hoity-toity bourgeoisie.
The Sex Pistols were spawned.
Young, sexy assassins. That's what the Sex Pistols meant to me. That's what the name that I gave them meant to me. And to send them out to be as irresponsible and as subversive and as childlike and represent everything this society might hate.
Because we didn't give a damn whether we were big, small or anything. We just did what we wanted to do and that was it. Success was not something we sought out, and it wasn't something that came, really. The Sex Pistols were big after they ceased to exist.
Anarchy for the UK is coming sometime, and maybe I give her on time, stop a traffic line. Your future dream is a shopping scheme, 'cause
it all was an art thing, and I was a kind of fashion victim and a fashion guerrilla.
We recorded Anarchy in the UK, and then we was rehearsing for the Anarchy tour, and then we got this call to go and do the Bill Grundy show.
I am told that that group have received £40,000 from a record company. Doesn't that seem to be slightly opposed to their anti-materialistic view of life?
No, more the merrier.
Really?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Well, tell me
McLaren's talent for creating publicity stunts was taken a stage further when the Pistols, who hadn't yet had a hit record, appeared on a daytime family TV show, previously a platform for demure and deferential artists.
No. What was the rude word?
Shit.
Was it really? Good heavens, you frightened me to death.
All right.
What about you girls behind?
He's like your dad, isn't he, this geezer?
Are you,
Or your granddad.
Are you worried, or are you just enjoying yourself?
Enjoying myself.
Are you?
Yeah.
That's what I thought you were doing.
I always wanted to meet you.
Did you really?
Yeah.
We'll meet afterwards, shall we?
You dirty son. You dirty old man.
Well, keep going, Chick, keep going. Go on, you've got another 5 seconds. Say something outrageous.
You dirty bastard.
Go on, again.
You dirty
What a clever boy.
What a rotter.
Well, that's it for tonight.
The interview was curtailed kind of quickly. I headed back into the green room to try and see if there was one more warm can of lager there. Malcolm grabbed me and he said, "Come on, let's get out of it." And just as well as he did, because this Daimler limo was outside, we pulled in that, and the split second we drove off, the Black Mariah turned up with like coppers with their truncheons hanging out, running into the studio. "See you later, mate." And then the next day, instead of Malcolm having to call up everybody and get him interested in our band, the Fleet Street were knocking on his door. You know, and it just changed overnight.
He was a great spin doctor in a way. He would react to situations with incredible alacrity and inventiveness without actually having created them with a master plan. They happened, which, you know, the Grundy show was an example of that, because he, immediately after that show, he was saying, "You've ruined everything, you've blown everything I've been working for," until he woke up the next day and saw the newspaper headlines, every national newspaper going berserk. And he realised this is the best thing that ever happened. But then he was brilliant at picking that up and amplifying it and making it really work for what he was doing.